Well, woohoo! It's Happy Times and Places. What's that? Well, it's a Doctor Who episode commentary podcast. And what makes it different from the others? Well, I try and be positive, and I'm also on a quest to guess what my special guest's favourite things about this particular episode are.
Hello, I'm Ian McLachlan, and I was delighted when I found the Dalek Masterplan was still available to talk about.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're leaving the Devil's Planet and advancing to episode 4 now of the Daleks Masterplan. It's another one whose assets we can only guess at because we will be largely experiencing this through still pictures and audio, all lovingly put together by Loose Cannon. And that is the medium I'm going to be enjoying this on as I press play in 3, 2, 1. So this is where this story, starts to get... Well, no, I think it's already got its reputation. We've lost Kurt Gantry, haven't we? We've got a very injured Stephen at the beginning, then an injured Brett Vian. Well, a grim-faced Brett Vian. We've got, the very highest person from Earth Authority, Marvick Chen, turns out to be a traitor. We've got all these glorious aliens working with the Daleks, and what are 4 plucky adventurers have nicked the Terranium core and are on the run. And the 4 of them, sadly, are about to dwindle in number. And of course, we hadn't seen this coming. So it would be interesting to have seen, how they did the reveal of the cliffhanger, because all we have is that blood-curdling, piercing scream of Katerina. And that extended opening suggests to me that I think we and the way that that's been put together as well, that we see it from sort of Kirkson's point of view, or with Kirkson, which we weren't in the last episode because of course that it was the shock reveal. But that's purely guesswork. I haven't actually looked at the script. I should really do that, shouldn't I? I do have the scripts. Oh, yeah! Don't go to Kemble. You don't want to go to Kemble. Why do you want to go to Kemble? We've already established that Kemble's really inhospitable, full of Varga plants and Daleks. Whoever the Daleks are, they'll help me. Oh, so where have you been? On a prison? Oh, in prison, where obviously you haven't had the news that the Daleks aren't great. Yeah, so they're pursuing, the Spar, of course, which is a great spaceship. Got word about the Spar. It is a wonderful, wonderful spaceship. And I do like this Dalek design and the black livery of the of your chief Dalek. Just those little simple things. But the way that they glide so impressively. And it's brilliant voices, too. They need... Yeah, fantastic voices, fantastic gliding Daleks. And it's so the stakes are surely as high as they've ever been in terms of scope. This is very like those sort of large scale Century TV 21 comic strips, which and a bit sort of like the Dan Dare sort of stuff, where you really got the feeling of this sort of vast empires out there, with governments and with prison planets and with security forces. I really like that sort of big wide world building, even though a lot of it is told from essentially 2 spaceship sets. This one that the heroes are on. And the Daleks chatting to each other. And of course that's brilliant because the Doctor says, we'll press the button and eject you into space. So that that tells Katerina that that's possible. She hasn't had a line, has she? It's really grim. She's really pulling away from him, and he's grabbed hold of her. You animals! Peter Purves is really good in this scene, but there's so sort of little build up to this in terms of what we see from her and what we hear from her, and I'm sure, doesn't the Doctor say take him back to Kendal? And it's like, yeah, well, we could go to Kendal. There's lovely mint cake there. But Purvis, because Brett has to be sort of quite dour and pragmatic. That's Courtney's job. He's doing the drama, but it's very sort of grim, downplayed drama. Purvis is the one who's really upping the ante. Not that button, and the way he screams Katerina there, I think, is amazing. Oh dear, the death of Katerina, which is very well done here on the reconstruction, where it's silent. She wanted to save our lives. Must have been quick. This is all great stuff. Not that way. Oh dear, that's really well done. And this is a sort of gutsy. She didn't understand. She couldn't understand. She wanted to save our lives, perhaps. Oh, well done, William Hartnell. Yes, this is... Oh, dear. I always remember her as one of the daughters of the gods, rather than an actress that came in for about a month. Oh, Hartnell does that so wonderfully. I think that's beautifully quiet. And then they cut to this bit, which is the first bit of filming Adrienne Hill ever did for the show, and Doug Sheldon indeed, where they're on trampolines and floating in space. And I believe didn't the producers of 2001 or something phone up and say, "How did you do that? It was really well done." And from what we can hear, it's quite a sort of extended sequence, a bit like the one of Scooty Minister in The Impossible Planet. Just a very silent, admirably silent moment with just the weird, spooky space sounds. But that's really nicely done. I think Peter Purves is magnificent in his sort of script. I remember first time I saw that as a clip. It was on Daleks, the early years, I think, and thinking, wow, that's gutsy and mature and quite, heartrending. But actually, viewing it in context of the episode, I mean, it's the episode's not very far in, and they've offed a companion. As I say, we can debate till the cows come home whether Katerina is a companion or not. I mean, I thought she was fairly short-lived when I found out she was in, just when I first heard about her, found out she was in the Mythmakers and died in the Dalek Masterplan. And we weren't told then that she was in the last half of the last episode of the Mythmakers and dies before the fourth episode of the Dalek Masterplan is halfway through. And you go, gosh, I think there are unit corporals that have been in Doctor Who longer than that. And Adrienne Hill only did one convention and a couple of interviews, but I think had she wanted to and lived, sadly, because she died relatively young, if she'd wanted to exploit her companionship, she would have been making hay with a very limited amount of sunshine. So Lizanne is back from episode 1. Lunyasha Greer, Pamela Greer. No Ronald, sadly. And this character, Carlton, because everybody in Earth Control, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in Earth Control are bald. They never quite explain. Whereas if all the technics are bald, and that's quite a nice wheeze, I suppose. Maybe they have to shave their heads so that they don't carry any space bugs. But then Carlton is bald as well, and he's a senior member. But Lizan is not bald, and Mavic Chen is anything but bald. But nonetheless, it gives a nice uniform look, and it kind of anticipates Lobot in Empire Strikes Back. Is there a load of bald people in Flash Gordon as well? Or did I dream that? Am I getting that conflated? Yeah, I think there are. Are there bald people in Flash Gordon? But this is great because I love all of this stuff of Mavic Chen coming black and planting the seeds of treachery, of again in this world of governments and security forces, you can have people working to different designs and undermining that stuff. So where would be a safe haven for our heroes normally, the Earth security forces, well, if this guy in charge is planting little seeds of treachery, as it turns out, he doesn't need to dupe Carlton, because Carlton's a baddie anyway. He's bald and he draws, and his name begins with a K. So he seems he's baddie. He's got a limp as well, which we'll talk about. I do like Maurice Browning's performance as Carlton, but I wonder if we should talk about it in episode 5 when we can actually see him. But I like his diction and the way he says Myra, and he's got a wonderful voice and very posh diction, which you couldn't have somebody doing now. But also, as I say, a limp. So we've had our first actor of colour in the Daleks Masterplan. We also get our first, and there are fewer of these in Doctor Who, our first disabled actor, Maurice Browning, in Doctor Who. But we'll talk about lovely Maurice Browning in episode 5, I think. But yeah, that limp is not, oh, I'm playing a baddie, I'll give him a limp. The actor himself actually has a limp. But yeah, he gets cast as a baddie, so it's difficult, isn't it? Because you go, well, we've used an actor who has mobility issues. Ah, yeah, but you've cast him as a baddie. Yeah, but it's a great part, and he'll be pleased of the employment. So, you could tick off anything you like. You say, oh well, we've cast him as a hero. Ah, yeah, but you've cast him as the hero who's got fewer lines than the hero who was in it last week. You could get across about whatever you want. It's a lovely performance, and he's a nice actor, and it's a nice piece of trivia. And of course, Brett has actually been as prominent, if not more so, than Katerina, and he's building up really nicely as a character. He's this sort of Doctor Who sustains this sort of character nicely again, particularly Doctor Who of this sort of period, because because Doctor Who is this sort of old man who can't do as much as the sort of actiony stuff. Well, I mean, and nor would Troughton have done, but having a sort of military space figure is he's a bit like the James Bond of outer space that Mark Corey, I think, was given the appellation of at one time. And I think that works really nicely in this and in this context of a show that's trying to be, a bit more sort of American in its approach, where, people are tough and people are agents and people go around shooting things. And of course, we're going to be introduced to Kingdom, who they talk about for ages, don't they? Kingdom, without saying it's actually a lady. And her introduction obviously causes ripples that will affect the rest of the story, but obviously more immediately in this very grim episode. It's called The Traitors, isn't it, this episode? And the traitors are the Dr. Stephen and Brett, although the traitors are Chen, Carlton, and Daxter, who we will meet shortly. And I suppose, no, Sarah is not a traitor, but she's gunning for the wrong traitors. The actual traitors are sending her to deal with whom she thinks are traitors, but aren't. What are these two up to? There's lots of, talking around stuff here. he said security kingdom. Yeah, he said some of your security men. So it's not just that by saying yes, and they've introduced kingdom as being ruthless and efficient. They really build up the character, which, as I say, is a nice, because they're going, oh, kingdom. But he also did explicitly state men, which he doesn't mean. But it's a nice introduction to the character who becomes this very important character. But again, I would say of dubious claim to companionship. Sarah Kingdom. It's got a nice space telephone as Carlton in this. The traitors have arrived. So he's relishing this performance again, but he's taking his time. Is Morris Browning as Carlton? So that makes the threat quite. Because when baddies start to panic, they sort of they become about rough around the edges, and it undermines their credibility a little bit. But I love the way that these two guys are taking their time, because they're in control. They've Malvik Chen's writing in his special way with his pen between his fingers. Love that. And then clearly, because he does it in the next episode as well, they've clearly gone, we really like what Kevin does with his fingers, so have him writing loads, because that's really cool. Kingdom's a lady, what a reveal. And Jean Marsh is great casting, because she's got that very clip delivery, and she's very... And of course, she actually also has natural warmth, which comes through later, but she's very, she can do pinched and pointed delivery. And she was married to John Pertwee at this time. So little did they know when she went home to her husband that he was actually going to contribute a bit more to Doctor Who than she was. So they're waiting for Daxter, who I seem to recall shouts most of his dialogue in this. It's Roger Avon, good actor who was Saffordin in The Crusade. So he Jean Marsh is returning from The Crusade, and Nicholas Courtney was nearly cast as Richard the Lionheart in The Crusade. I think he was thought of for it, but you wouldn't turn down Julian Glover when you got him. Camfield obviously had a pool of actors he enjoyed looking at and working with. Roger Avon crops up in Doctor Who a fair amount in this period, because he's also in Doctor Who Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. A sort of very big-chinned, sturdy actor who was still, when I was learning about actors... Here he is coming in now. When I was learning about actors, he was you'd see him in quite a lot of 60s stuff, but he pops up in an episode of Blackadder, when the Highwayman episode of Blackadder the Third, and he goes, "Shut up, you stupid fag hag," or something. He has a great line, and I remember him doing some sort of insurance advert where he was interviewed, and it's Roger Avon and his wife, and it didn't say they were actors, even though they are actors, but they're actors talking about, the lines were blurred as to whether they weren't vox pops, as it were. But anyway, and I recall him in his spotlight saying "genuine Geordie." Because that's a thing you could sort of do to just go, oh yes, because so many actors of that period had sort of, most actors would lose their natural accent and could fall back into it, of course, but most actors of a couple of generations spoke RP in order, because that was seen as the sort of default accent. And you wouldn't be able to play Daxter as a Geordie. But I like that he'd inserted that back into his spotlight, I think in the 80s, where it said "genuine Geordie," just to give him an in somewhere with a casting always helps. So he was still going strong when I was a youngster watching modern programmes. But he's been dead for some time now. Roger Avon. I don't know that he was ever interviewed It's before my time of writing to actors and things like that. But good face, good lived-in face with sort of slightly sunken, sullen eyes. But of course he is the traitor, Dakstar. And then we see a character called Borkar later. There's I like the sort of similarity of the names. It makes everybody feel part of a whole. But we don't have. Oh yes. So, and you know, why is everybody a traitor? This is where it gets a bit muddy, because is Dakstar a traitor? Is he willingly going along with Chen? Because Chen is his boss. But of course, because he's denying it. He, you know, we He is on the side of the baddies. It's not that he's been duped by Chen, which is a good job, because Brett's about to kill him. Yeah, he gets quite high pitched fairly quickly with being accused. Maybe he knows his friend from all his life, Brett, is at the mere whiff of treachery is going to waste him, which he does. So it's not a massive part, is it? But it just goes to show that in the world of the Space Security Service, in this universe that we inhabit, justice is pretty summary, which is important for later. And this is great, because the Doctor, berates Brett, calls him a brainless idiot. You know, the Doctor is very firmly saying, this is not how I deal with stuff. And Brett, who we like, foreshadows his own death with his sort of shoot first, ask questions later. I was talking through Trantis last time. Trantis is the mighty Roy Evans, who I'm sure in episode 2 I reeled off his CV. Still, as I record this, going strong. I got a letter from him not that long ago. He was a good friend of Lenny Mayne, the director. But yes, and Trantis is the spiky-faced one. We're not sure if he's the spiky-faced. We don't think he's the spiky-faced one in Mission to the Unknown, but there's a whole podcast in which delegates become which. This reconstruction is using the Trantis, or the spiky-faced alien from Mission to the Unknown, because when this reconstruction was put together, we didn't have the moving footage of episode 2, which has Roy Evans' Trantis in it, and so there weren't enough pictures. So this is was it Len Russell maybe playing the spiky faced one in Mission to the Unknown, because he's the smaller actor of the ones playing the delegates. Jack Rayner does a brilliant thing on her blog. Google that. And she goes through in painstaking detail which delegate is which in Mission to the Unknown and which delegate is which in the Daleks Masterplan, and the mysteries we have that surround all of those. And I love the fact that there are such mysteries, although I will happily see them solved by the return of every single missing episode of Doctor Who. The Doctor really doesn't like Brett that much, actually. Which is Sarah and Brett, and she, and of course, the lesson here is don't shoot first and ask questions later. But this is really grim, because we've lost Katerina, but at least we're sort of thinking that Brett was here for the long term, but Brett thinks she's the traitor, but she shoots him, and later we learn that this was not a great thing for her to have done. It gets a bit soapy, dare I say it, which I don't mind, but anybody that loves 60s Doctor Who that thinks sort of this personal stuff is an invention of Russell T Davies, but I'd been led to believe that yes, whereas of course this I'm now watching the bit. I'm now watching the bit from next week where you don't actually see Brett Vian's body because because they don't want to pay him to be in next week. But I assume at the end of episode 4 you did when Borko went that's Brett Vian that you did probably see him. But you know, that's pretty that's pretty grim stuff. That you know, 2 allies of the Doctor, as well as Kirk Gantry in episode 1, you know, have been wiped out without an awful lot of ceremony. It's a very grim universe that the time travelers find themselves in the Dalek Masterplan, and I rather like it. You know, a lot of the sci-fi of Doctor Who has been quite strange. Some of it has been a bit boys only. Some of it's been a little bit quaint. You know, I'm talking in the previous couple of years of the show. You know, some of it has been a bit hackneyed. Some of it has been remarkably unhackneyed and really, really strange. Web Planet. Hackneyed, I was thinking, you know, Space Museum. But this has got the sort of the sort of boys' own adventuriness of the more contemporary stuff like Dalek Invasion of Earth. I know it's set in the future, but it's a, you know, World War II resistance story. And this has gone, well, let's do all that kind of stuff, but let's set it in the future and create our own sort of universe. And I really like that. I think that works. But my favourite thing in The Traitors, which is a great title, because I like the way that it plays with the expectation and of who is a traitor and who isn't. Well, not the expectation, but with you know, who is deemed to be traitors by different forces moving throughout the episode. The death of Katerina is the best thing about that episode, and I think it's one of the best things in the show up to this point. I think it's really dramatic, and the fact that they give such weight to somebody who basically kind of wandered around being slightly off kilter for 3.5 episodes, and give it such weight, and she, you know, she doesn't even get to sort of say anything or have a final speech or have a final moment that isn't her being sort of grabbed and just sort of reaching for a button. But she's no great big speeches, no great big moment of introspection 5 minutes before to, you know, give her a little bit of a grace note before. You know, there was no moment really in the last episode where they sat down and, you know, she said, I'd like to become one of the daughters of the gods, or imagine what it'd be like floating around in space or anything like that. It's pretty harsh. This is quaint old 60s Doctor Who, pretty harsh. Love it. But I think that, you know, the weight that they give it, and the Stephen screaming of her name, and then the silence, and then the Doctor's little eulogy that he gives her, and then the fact that it cuts to them, you know, floating like cinders in Spain, but, you know, but floating about in space, which I can only imagine what that looked like. But it was a sequence they invested in on film, and it impressed the MGM guys or whoever it was. Somebody find it in a cupboard. Meanwhile, who's in my cupboard? It's Ian K McLachlan, the veteran fan. Responsible for so much that we know about the early years of the show. I think he's got letters from William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton. Oh, Ian. And here he is in my cupboard, giving his verdict on episode 4. And if he doesn't choose the death of Katerina, I will shave his long white beard off. That's not legally binding.
Then we have The Traitors. Now, I would nominate The Traitors as my favourite all-time Doctor Who episode.
Oh,
why? Well, there's 2 surprising incidents in them. That episode was Loaned to Blue Peter, and there is a chance that might turn up, and I would love them 2 traitors to turn up, because you had the unexpected death of Katerina, which you didn't expect. Katerina had been mentioned in the Radio Times, and I remember closely reading all the Radio Times previews before I watched the Doctor Who episode, and Katerina wasn't really mentioned. There wasn't any information about the actress Andrea Hill is past acting life before it, and I thought that was very strange. But I knew that, well, that was why there wasn't much about her, because she didn't survive very long, and unfortunately. But I would nominate the death of Brett Vian as the thing that I really was shocked as well about in that episode, and the disclosure in the after it that Brett was Sarah Kingdom's brother was another shock. But the death of Brett Vian, Peter Purvis mentioned at one time that he thought he might be replaced in the show by Brett, and it was so, but that didn't happen, of course. Brett was a short-term character, and he disappeared. So, for the traitors, the death of Brett Vian.
Right. Well, the death of Brett Vian is, of course, really, really good. But and really effectively done in its sort of bluntness and the repercussions it has for Sarah later when she becomes our friend. And the introduction of Sarah, I mean, that's so well done as well. That could have been the best moment. But no, but it's Ian's all-time favourite episode. Wow, we've just watched Ian's favourite episode of Doctor Who. There's a lot to recommend that episode. It's really, really strong. So much to talk about there, I'm pleased to say. But I love the way as well that Ian was saying, we looked in the Radio Times and there wasn't much about the actress. And so, sort of extrapolating there, going, so I'm not surprised that she died. I mean, it's essentially trawling the internet for spoilers, isn't it? in print form in 1965. I love that. I love that. The fact that we're all creatures cut from the same cloth, even though Ian was doing that 10 years before I was born, and 40 years before the invention of the thing that we glean all our information from now, or try to avoid our information from. Do you think there are other people going, well, I'm not getting the Radio Times for the whole of this the next 12 weeks because it's an epic story. I don't want to be spoiled for this epic story. They might give things away that I love that. Well, anyway, I better go and sharpen my scissors to go and cut off Ian's beard for choosing. I thought that one was in the bag. So 4 down. Have I got none? I've got none. So it looks like the Daleks Masterplan is going to be a total whitewash. So that would be the end of a story, a 4-parter. But we're only a third of the way through this mighty epic. That shows no signs of letting up, and next time we'll have moving pictures too, and an episode I'm much more familiar with because I've seen the ones with moving pictures that have been around a while, much more. But until then, I'm going to go and sharpen my scissors. You go and do whatever it is that you do, but remember not to be a traitor. And I will speak to you next time. Thanks for listening. Goodbye. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke, and my special guest, Ian K McLachlan. These commentaries would be impossible without the support of patrons, who include Ruben Herfindahl, Peter Burns, Peter Harness, Rob Leonard, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Nick Tedston, Jonathan Potter, Richie, Dylan Rees, John Rivers, Jim Saxter, Matt Sawyer, Keith Say, Neil Tate, Nick Temple, Sabrina Tirabassi, Reynard Toombs, David Trainier, Apollo C. Vermouth, Gary Wales, Adam Westwood, Rich Wiggins, Michael Williams, Andrew Willis, Andrew Wilson, Stephen White, Corridors, and Robin Bland, and everyone else who I will mention at another time. The music was by Dave Gates, and the podcast artwork is by Dylan Patterson. Corridors and Robin Bland, eh? You see, some people are so proud to sponsor me on patreon.com/Toby Hadoke that they have their names read out that aren't their names. I want an acknowledgement, but don't let anybody know it's me. Oh, that's the murky web we weave when supporting artists. But you can do that, patreon.com/Toby Hadoke, and you can be as anonymous as you like. It starts for as little as £3 a month. And even on top of that, if you sign up for a whole year, you get a 10% discount. And for £3, you get advance releases and bonus material, exclusives. And there are higher tiers as well that get you a few other things, but it's fairly egalitarian, and most things are available at the lowest tier. But you can give me whatever you want, and it really does help me to take the time to do these properly and to get these out on a regular basis. So I'm very, very grateful to all of those people who are patrons, and to those who do one-off payments at kofi.com/Toby Hadoke, which you can do anytime you like, and there's no sort of binding commitment there. But, I'm just grateful to you for listening. Thanks for doing that. Listening is, of course, free, and if you like free stuff, well, why don't you go to iTunes or wherever you get these podcasts, and you can do more free stuff like give these a 5-star score and perhaps a couple of lines of positive review. That just really helps to separate these out from all the other brilliant Doctor Who podcasts out there, but it means that passing trade might spot this in the crowd and give it a listen, and that just really helps me, and it emboldens me to do more and encourages me to do better, which I'll try and do better. I mean, I'm actually recording this bit. It's gone midnight. It's actually 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, the 2nd of January. So do you know what I'm doing? I'm actually recording this bit, this frivolous bit that a lot of people who are switched off for, because it's post-credits, it's post the usual boring Patreon plug and iTunes plug and all of that. This is the dregs that I'm recording for the, half dozen of you that are still listening. I'm actually recording on my birthday. It's 1:01. It's just past 1:01. What's in your room 1:01, Toby? To talking into thin air on my birthday after an episode of Doctor Who that I've talked through that I can't actually see and will probably never see. But there we go. So I don't know why I share that, but anyway, because patrons, you'll be listening to this, I think, a couple of weeks later, I guess. The way things are going now, this is due, literally 2 weeks from now. Non-patrons, I can't keep up with the schedule, but it'll be closer to next Christmas than last Christmas. The date, not the Doctor Who episode. There's not currently a Doctor Who episode called Next Christmas, although I'm sure there will be at one point. Anyway, happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to you, because by the time you listen to this, most of you will have had a birthday since my birthday. Oh, we've all had a lovely birthday. So anyway, there we go. Who says Doctor Who fans aren't sad? Sitting alone on their birthday at 1 o'clock in the morning, talking into thin air. But you know what? It's probably more fun than most things I could be doing, to be honest.